Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The MLB All Star Game just happened, which means the first thing on everyone's mind is, will Shohei Ohtani be traded? Also, Cade Cunningham wants the high expectations that are placed on him, and if the Saints miss Alvin Kamara, they won't miss a beat. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
Anytime there's a big baseball story like, the Summer Classic, Shohei Ohtani is taking center stage. He has become the biggest attraction in baseball, which means we're going to talk about his future, because that is all anyone wants to talk about outside of Angels fans, of course, and Shohei Ohtani being an incredible player, by the way. Let's not let that get lost in all of this. But he gave a quote to The Athletic earlier this week about his impending free agency, said it sucks to lose, which some people were taking as a, hey, Angels, you got to figure this out, and quick, fast, and in a hurry. So John Frisch from Locked On Angels joins me now. And John, I hate to do this to you because the Angels season has not been as bad as it has been in seasons past. But what is the point at which the Angels say, look, we don't think we can pay him $500 million, so we have to figure out what's next for us?
Yeah, you look at where they're sitting in the standings. They're 7 games back of first place. They're 4 games out of a wild card. They'd have to go 41-26 to get to 90 wins. That's kind of the number that we've been aiming for. Just because, yeah, I know. And 90 wins kind of gives you a spot in one of those 3 wild card positions. But there's 71 games left. If you want to flip it around and look at it that way, you got to play all 162, man. And I think that when the Angels come back from the break, they desperately needed this break. They were falling apart there toward the end. And as they come back, they'll get Brandon Drury and Zach Neto and Mike Trout and Rendon, Logan O'Hoppe at some point in August, hopefully. Peter, can I be a little facetious for a moment?
Sure.
Regarding Shohei's hate to lose comment. I mean, all players hate to lose, but you mean to tell me that we surrounded Shohei with the best players in the American League and they still lost on Tuesday night? What's that about?
See, so there you go. You can't win for trying if you're Shohei Ohtani at this point. Put the best team you could possibly put around him and they still can't win. So this could also portend the biggest bidding war in history. Forget the free agency. If he does become available in a trade, that raises the question, like, how do you even try and build in a price that makes sense if you're the Angels? Yeah,
I mean, you think about, everybody likes to compare this to the Juan Soto deal that the Nationals made with the Padres last year, and people say, well, he had a lot more years on his contract. Well, with Shohei Ohtani, you're getting 2 players. You're getting an ace of your staff. Maybe he slots in as a number 2 behind somebody who's already the ace of a staff. And then you're getting a left-handed DH who might very well break the American League home run record when all is said and done and outpace Aaron Judge because he's sitting at 32 right now, and there's a lot of season left. So to me, I think the package for an Ohtani deal still could net the Angels some players. Can I tell you my ideal scenario? If things go poorly for the Angels right up until the All-Star break, you trade him away and you re-sign him in the offseason, and you let him know that, hey, this is something we got to do. It's business. It's not personal. My only concern there is, do you want to be the ones to trade away Ohtani and make him uncomfortable in another environment where, he's got it pretty cushy in Anaheim when it comes to media, when it comes to his routine and his schedule, and the Angels letting him manage himself because he knows his body best. He knows his skill set best. And I think that you kind of risk that with moving Ohtani. I mean, my fan heart says, let's keep pushing. Let's keep grinding. Add the players you need to add before the deadline. Get back out there and make these 71 games count, because 4 games out of a wild card spot doesn't seem impossible. The Texas Rangers sitting in first place in the AL, they had kind of a skid coming into the All-Star break. So like I said before, you got to play all 162. There's 71 games left. My fan heart says, push your chips in, baby. Let's go.
Stay up to date all year on the LA Angels by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Angels on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, why Cade Cunningham is ready for the challenge. Before we get to that, the NBA is instituting 2 new rule changes next season. The summer heat is settled in, and you want a pair of shorts that impress while feeling great. That's where Birddogs comes in. Birddogs make you look good. They're stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving you a truly sculpted look, even if you're not sculpted. They fit like a dream. Birddogs invented cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki but stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. They also use anti-stink sweat wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. You can seriously go from the couch to the golf course to a night out all with the same pair of Birddogs on. I know, I've done it. These are the most comfortable pair of shorts I've ever owned. In fact, I now own at least 4 pair of them. Go to birddogs.com/lockedon or enter promo code LOCKEDON for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddogs.com/lockedon or promo code LOCKEDON for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. The NBA's Board of Governors approved 2 rule changes that will go into effect next season. A second coach's challenge if the first one is successful, and maybe more importantly, an in-game flopping penalty. Both rule changes have been unanimously recommended to the Board of Governors by the league's competition committee. Coaches having access to a second challenge has been widely requested. Now, if a team gets a challenge correct earlier in a game, they'll have a chance for a second one later in the contest. This follows with a rule like in the NFL, where if you get 2 right, you get another one. The catch is they will not get a timeout back for the second challenge, even if it's successful. Meanwhile, flopping will be costly. When a referee calls a flop, there will be a non-unsportsmanlike technical foul called on the offending player's team, and the opposing team will get a free throw. Referees also won't have to stop play to call a flop, as they can wait until the next stop in live action if needed to make the call. The National League snapped a 9-year losing streak to the American League in the MLB All Star Game last night. Colorado Rockies catcher Elias Diaz hit the go-ahead 2-run jack in the 8th inning to give the NL the lead for good.
Rock on Rockies fans, I hope you can hear me, but behind me right over there, your National League MVP of the All Star Game, Elias Diaz. Let's go Rocks! Woo!
Philadelphia Phillies pitcher Craig Kimbrell worked around 2 walks in the 9th to nail down the win. Seattle Mariners outfielder Julio Rodriguez, the hometown hero, had a chance to win it in the 9th, but instead drew a walk. The AL still leads the all-time series 47-42. The Major League Baseball Players Association would like the league to soften the pitch timer rule as the 2023 season approaches the playoffs, but Commissioner Rob Manfred is leaning toward keeping the current one in place. MLBPA Executive Director Tony Clark said Tuesday before the All Star Game, "I don't think there are too many folks that want to have a new rule affect a game in a pennant chase or in the playoffs." When asked about Clark's statement, Manfred responded by saying, "We are comfortable with the way the clock and the violations, particularly late in the game, in high leverage situations, have been managed. I personally think the clock has been nothing but good and don't see a need to change it." Speaking of the commissioner, Rob Manfred said that the Oakland A's have begun to submit information related to their relocation application, which is a lot of words to saying they're going. About a month ago, the Nevada legislature approved a $380 million bill that would help fund a proposed 30,000-seat, $1.5 billion with a B retractable roof ballpark on the Tropicana Hotel site along the Vegas Strip. The A's hope that, get this, the stadium will be ready by 2028. Their lease at the Oakland Coliseum expires after the 2024 season, and their interim home is yet to be decided. I'm not great at math, but there's a couple years in there where they don't have a place to play. The situation continues to just be ridiculous as avenues still exist where the A's may stay in Oakland. Keep it tuned into Locked On A's every day as this saga unfolds. Pistons guard Cade Cunningham has some extreme pressure on him as a top draft pick, regardless of the fact that he plays for the Detroit Pistons. Locked On Pistons host Kuka Hill was joined by Cade's brother, Cannon, who gave some insight into how Cade deals with the expectations.
You mentioned that not only, some of the players, but the fan base is obviously getting sick of losing. Like, they don't want to lose no more. They want to win. But for me, it's like, and I want to get your perspective on it, someone who's close with Cade, is obviously I think Cade's going to be a future MVP. I think he has that type of two-way ability. I think he can run an offense. I think he can be a powerhouse offense in and of himself. I think he's going to be absolutely fantastic, but he's only 21, 22 years old. He's coming off an injury. How do you balance, as someone close with Cade and someone who works with Cade, how do you think Cade balances the obvious expectations and want of, I want to be an all-star, I want to be an MVP, I want to get this team to the playoffs, I want to get to the championship, balancing that with like realistic expectations of, okay, we got a long way to go, I'm young, I still have I have a long career in front of me, I'm trying to get better at this, that, and the other. How do you balance both of those? Because you do want to have high goals for yourself. You do want to see the team win a lot of games. I think you were on was it Woodward Pistons? You and Aston were on there, and they asked you guys about what you expect from the team next year. How many games they're going to win? Do you expect playoffs, etc.? Just how do you feel you balance both those, the expectations for yourself and wanting to achieve high things while also not putting too much on yourself?
I think if there is a way to balance it, Cade will figure it out. I've never been the face of a franchise.
Right.
So I can't really advise on everything, but I saw something pretty interesting maybe a couple of weeks ago on Twitter that basically some stat guy figured out that you can't win a championship unless you have a top 3 player in the league. Right. And so, it's easy for me and our fan base to get swept up in all this team building stuff and what should Troy do and, I would have done this differently or whatever. But until I don't see a way that we can be a real threat in the East until our big 3 is better than other teams' big 3s. And we're not just, a young core anymore, right. A real big 3, or we're a real dynamic duo or whoever's around, I don't know. But until our guys are actually legitimately better than other teams' guys, these role players and interchangeable pieces that, shift a roster year to year aren't really all that important in the grand scheme of things, So I think Cade understands that it ultimately is going to ride on his shoulders, how far this team can go. But I also think he understands that, we're not in a position to make a deep run right now. So I don't think he has unrealistic expectations for himself, but he knows that it's going to fall on his shoulders eventually.
So I love hearing that because my expectations for Cade this year is I'd like to see him. I think he could win Most Improved Player of the Year. I think he could be a borderline All-Star this year. Because the reason why I asked that question is because as someone who's obviously not in the NBA, but loves basketball and obviously analyzes basketball and watches Cade all the time and wants the Pistons to succeed, is that I want to put expectations on Cade, but I don't want the fan base or anyone to put expectations on Cade that are just unrealistic and really unfair. Because, for example, one of the main
I think that's part of being the number 1 pick.
Right.
And I actually asked him in our pre-draft time together, do you want to go first? And it's a no-brainer. Of course, we don't want to be the number 1 pick. But there was a lot of things to consider. Like, we're from Texas. Houston has the 2nd pick. There was, whispers that maybe Troy likes Jalen Green. And I was just like, we don't have to, we can maybe maneuver this thing a little bit. And he was like, no, man, I want to go first. I want to always be the number 1 guy in my class. And so he understands the stuff that comes with that. Of course, people are going to have super high expectations for him. That's the bed that he made,
Stay up to date all year on the Detroit Pistons by subscribing to Locked On Sports today and Locked On Pistons on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Saints will be fine on offense if Alvin Kamara misses time. Take your first swing at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets, up to $200. That's right, just bet $20 and you'll land $200 back in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the point total to who you think is going to hit the first home run. MVP odds pretty lopsided right now. Shohei Ohtani, far and away the favorite to win the AL MVP. This is wild, minus 750. Corey Seager is the next closest with odds at 17-1. In the NL, it's Ronald Acuna ahead of everyone with his odds to win at minus 330. Mookie Betts, the next closest at 6-1. You can also combine multiple prop bets in a single game for a bigger payout with FanDuel's same game parlay. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Alvin Kamara's legal situation has concluded, but the NFL is set to do its own investigation and could still hand out punishment to the Saints running back. Locked On Saints host Ross Jackson believes the Saints offense will not miss a beat without Kamara.
If Alvin Kamara misses time in 2023, the New Orleans Saints should not have a problem moving the ball. And if they do, it's on them. They spent time this offseason and invested heavily in their running back room, bringing in last year's rushing touchdowns leader in Jamal Williams, and then going out there and drafting in the third round an incredibly talented, very young running back in Kendre Miller out of TCU, who himself rushed for 17 touchdowns last year, as well as 1,399 yards with the national champion runner-up TCU Horned Frogs. Now, can he translate the success of the collegiate game into the run game, into the NFL game? The New Orleans Saints have been very confident about that. When I spoke to Joel Thomas, the New Orleans Saints running back coach during OTAs, one of the things that he told me was that they're very confident in Kendre Miller. They like the way that he moves. They like his vision. They like his ability to get north and south very quickly. They like his breakaway speed, and they believe that he can be an impact in the passing game. So there is no doubt in my mind that the New Orleans Saints should be able to continue to move the ball, even without Alvin Kamara in the lineup for 2, 4, 6, 8 games in 2023, whatever it ends up being based upon whatever the NFL does.
If this were a few years ago and Sean Payton were still the coach and Drew Brees were still the quarterback and Michael Thomas was catching for 1,500 yards in seasons, I would say fine. No Kamara for a couple games. The offense will be fine. But Sean Payton is in Denver and Michael Thomas is, well, he's still in New Orleans, but he hasn't played football in 2 years. And Drew Brees is doing Amazon broadcasts. And it's Derek Carr who's acclimating to a new situation, a new offense, a new everything. And no one is a bigger fan of Jamal Williams than I am. But he's not Alvin Kamara. I don't think that's a controversial take. So this is a team that has to reincorporate some pieces. Michael Thomas fitting in with Chris Olave, if Michael Thomas can play football again. A new quarterback in a new situation, a new circumstance, new receivers, new everything. And now you're taking the one constant over the last few years, the best player on offense over the last few years in a lot of ways, or at least the engine of the offense, someone who could affect the run game, affect the passing game, affect everything you do, be the engine. That guy's going to miss games, and it's not Sean Payton, it's not Drew Brees. I have a lot of questions about how that's going to go, even with the understanding that Kamara has not been the same player over the last few seasons. I'm not convinced. And finally, in 2022, the Los Angeles Angels selected pitcher Ben Joyce out of Tennessee. This year, they took Ben's twin brother, Zach, in the 14th round. Aside from being united with his twin brother, this is a bit of catharsis for Zach Joyce, as he had Tommy John surgery in January 2020 and also stepped away from the game because of clinical depression and anxiety. He returned this season with the Volunteers and now will get to play alongside his brother in the Angels organization. Thanks for making Locked On Sports today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcast and make them your second listen. Coming up tomorrow, who enters the second half of the Major League Baseball season as World Series favorites? So at least until tomorrow, Stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.